I finally got around to seeing James Gunn's Superman and wanted to share my thoughts. I'll start with what I thought worked, what I liked. The first thing is David Cornsweet as Superman. I was nervous because I'm a big fan of Henry Cavill, and I was a fan of putting him into the new film. I thought he would do a great job. He still looks young, even though he's in his 40s, I believe. But I thought he'd play the role just fine. He's a fan favorite. So there were big shoes to fill for David Cornsweet, and he fit them. I think that it's clear that he knows the character well, and he embodied what it was to be Superman, in my view. The second thing I liked were some of the action sequences. And I think mainly toward the end of the film, Superman gets his moment to shine, but he gets to, beat the bad guys, and there are some pretty cool things that James Gunn does with Superman's abilities. One of them we see in the trailer where he, shoots the red beams out of his eyes and spins around really fast and basically kills everything coming at him. That's a pretty cool moment. Some of the flying sequences were also pretty cool. It's always cool just to see Superman fly, and when you see it in a theater and the seat starts to rumble underneath you, and he kind of charges up and just goes a million miles an hour around the earth. That's always fun. That's why we go to a Superman movie, right? So some of the action sequences I thought were really well put together, really well made. The third thing I liked is there was a touching moment with Superman and his adopted father. And I think generally in the Superman comics, this is kind of where Superman is grounded when he goes back home to the farm in Kansas and sees his adopted parents. And with this film, there wasn't too many moments when he gets to go back to Kansas, but there was a moment where his father speaks to him and kind of tells him it's the choices we make that define us. Moving forward, just know that your heart is in the right place based on the choices that you make. I also like the scene where Lois and Clark are in their apartment together, and they kind of have that back and forth where Clark becomes Superman and is interviewed by Lois. It's a very dialogue-heavy scene, a lengthy scene with a lot of character development, and it provides context as to what happened in their relationship prior to where the story of this movie begins. And I thought it was a really good back and forth. We get to kind of see the motives behind what Superman does. We get to see how Lois thinks as a journalist. And there's a lot of context provided in terms of Superman's relationship with the government, how the world views Superman, and his place sort of in this world. Next, we have Alan, and I don't know if I'm going to get his last name right, Alan Tudyk as Four or Gary, but Alan Tudyk, who is a very, very talented actor, especially when it comes to mocap. He played Sonny in I, Robot with Will Smith, and he played another droid in Star Wars, and in this film he plays another robot/android character that is stationed in Superman's underground lair. And he plays him very well. A good comic relief character with good heart, and just adds some comedy to the scene. And lastly, what I liked about this version of Superman is the theme of existentialism. Because despite Superman's flaws and suffering, at the end of the movie, he mentions this to Lex Luthor. He still chooses to get up every day and try to make the best choice that he can, which goes back, of course, to that moment I spoke about in Kansas on the farm when his adopted father was like, hey, it's the sum of our choices, who we are and our integrity. It's based on what we do. And that theme of existentialism was tied into this scene at the end where Superman says, hey, even though I'm different from you, Lex, I still get up every day and I try to do my best with every choice that I make. What I didn't like, this is might be a bit more extensive. The plot, for one, kind of important. The plot until the last, I would say, 20 minutes is Lex Luthor attempting to damage Superman's legacy via social media and attempting to kill him because he's an alien. That, to me, is just shallow. Lex Luthor has a personal vendetta against Superman, but in this movie, his personal vendetta against Superman exists because Superman is an alien? Like, okay, yeah, he's an alien. That's just... Can we go any deeper than that, or is it just that we're going off of? There is a depth to their relationship that could have been fleshed out that would have made the story better, in my opinion. But alas, here we are. The third thing in regards to plot that I didn't really like was that the stakes don't get super heavy until about the last 20 minutes of the movie, when two countries go to war and Lex Luthor opens a rift connecting an area between dimensions to Earth. I saw a review of Superman by Nerdrotic, and he kind of looked at the plot as well and determined that it was the plot is Superman does this and then. And he notes how if your plot consists of a bunch of and thens instead of Superman did this, but, or Superman did this, consequently, if you have all these and thens, the plot is just kind of meh. And that's what it is. There were no stakes, in my opinion, no truly high stakes until the last 20 minutes, like I said. And the countries that go to war, it's like, okay, all right, I guess they're going to war. I don't really feel much about this. And the whole rift that opens up in this, kind of this dimension that's between worlds that's connected to planet Earth now, I don't really feel invested. So the plot was not great, needless to say. Second thing I didn't like was that the members of the Justice League are just sort of there. There's obviously a history between them and Superman, but we, the viewer, do not know what that is. And if you're a reader of the comics and a comic book fan, and you're able to fill that all in yourself, that's fantastic for you, good for you. But for me, I'm not that invested in the comics and have not read the backstories, and I don't think I should have been required to. I didn't do that for Marvel, and Marvel did a great job of making sure that there were meaningful connections, deep connections between the characters in their series. I just didn't get that here with Superman and the members of the Justice Gang, if you will. To throw James Gunn a bone, I do think that it's a tough spot that James Gunn was in, because do you go into origin stories for these characters, or do you kind of drop us in the middle? You know, there's been so many of these superhero movies made that have done well, and a lot have flopped in the last 5 to 7 years, and so it does kind of feel like we're a bit over the origin story thing. But at the same time, if an origin story is done well, I truly believe that even if it's been done frequently, audience members will appreciate a story that has been told very well. If movie fans have been clamoring for anything over the past 5 to 10 years, it's been just tell a good story. And I think it almost doesn't matter what it is. So if James Gunn would have told an origin story very well, I think that audience members would have loved it. But like I said, I get why James Gunn skipped it. We're kind of, it feels like we're past that as a culture, but it did leave me feeling uninvested in the whole Justice Gang plotline and indifferent towards almost every character except for Superman. The third thing I didn't like was that the CGI was very hit and miss. When you see a sequence like the Anti-Proton River, which is a major sequence in this movie, it just looks like Superman is swimming on a bunch of colorful pixels. It looks fake. It feels fake. And some of the points, besides the Anti-Proton River, like Crypto the dog, good character, fun character. Some of the CGI done for him it was very obvious to see that, and you just felt like you were in a video game. But I'm always kind of baffled when you have these major studios like Marvel and DC who have hundreds of millions of dollars to pour into these projects, and like the tool that they have to use a lot, CGI, isn't used very well. The fourth thing, and we've heard this a lot online already, but there are misplaced jokes. I personally didn't think that this was as much of a problem as it's been made out to be, but they do happen. The last thing I did not like about this movie, Lex Luthor clones Superman, and we get yet another fight between near identical characters. And it's just like, Marvel has called this out before. I don't know if James Gunn has or anybody in DC has, but they know that this is kind of a trope that happens over and over again, where they contrast the protagonist with an almost equal in strength antagonist, and they're like identical characters. And it just happens again, and it's supposed to be a twist at the end of the movie, literally cloning the protagonist in order to put up a good fight against him. So I was like, that's been used over and over again, and I'm just over it at this point. So those are my thoughts on James Gunn's Superman. Overall, I give it 3 out of 5 stars. I might have given it 2.5. It just did not do it for me. My wife and I walked out of the theater, and we both looked at each other and were like, okay, this was supposed to be James Gunn coming out and being like, this is how I, the head of DC, make movies and how we're going to be doing this moving forward. And it was just like, all right, at least 2 out of the 3 Guardians movies you made were better than this. So we're off to a rough start to this new DC James Gunn universe, but I guess we'll see what else they produce in the future. If you got any value out of this video, let me know. Hit the like button, comment down below, let me know your thoughts. If you think I'm right, totally wrong, whatever, would love to know. And if you want to hang out with me in the future, please hit the subscribe button. But until then, stay classy, I guess.